like out in the elements, building piles and learning about machinery and marketing and things like that. And we're happy to be offering a compost operators scholarship, which will fund pretty much your whole entire thing. So reach out if you want to learn more, or if you scan this QR code right now, that'll get you to the scholarship opportunity. And some of the first just funding things, some of you already know of, but I'll say them again. The Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy funds litter and waste reduction and recycling incentive grants. These are projects that you should get developed and have ready for the due dates, usually sometime in June. And this is a great opportunity to get some funding to help you get started. To my screen here. Secondly is the Nebraska Environmental Trust. They too fund developed projects for conservation, just restoring natural habitats, and also waste diversion and recycling. So this is also something to pursue. Just make sure you're really developing your projects before you're applying. That's important with any grant you're applying for. And we're always here at NRC to kind of assist if you have like questions or you just want to kind of touch base what we think about your project. And then lastly, you can always get your compost started with a recycling equipment grant. This is a program we have here at NRC, which we've been doing, I don't know, maybe 20 years or more. And it's NRC administered with funds from NET. So this is a great, like smaller monetary amount grant system that has helped a ton of composters around Nebraska. These pictures are actually from operations here in our state. So just some examples of what this can help you purchase. And now, without further ado, I'm going to put Brock Johnson of NRCS on to present the rest of the information for funding your compost operation. And he'll share all sorts of cool stuff that I'm happy and excited to learn about as well. So I'm going to stop sharing. Thanks for dealing with my inept Zoom skills here. Okay. And then we'll get Brock on.
Thanks, Karina.
Yeah.
So I can get this launched here and shared. I'm going to send you a copy this morning. I couldn't get it past our firewall, so let me see here. In just a second.
Oh yeah, take your time. I obviously should have practiced Zoom a little more.
Well, I think it's making me send a share request today. Can you approve that?
I think it should let you now.
Oh, no, it looks like.
Yay.
Okay. Hopefully you can see the full screen.
Yeah, and thanks for being here, Brock. I'll mute myself now.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. Again, my name is Brock Johnson, like Karina mentioned. I'm with the Natural Resources Conservation Service. I'm a state office position of our Lincoln office, but I'm currently housed in the Columbus, Nebraska field office that we have. So glad to be here today. And so I wanted to show you a little bit about NRCS if you are not familiar with us. Can you see the Dust Bowl picture there, Karina? Awesome. So real quickly, NRCS we're a branch in the United States Department of Agriculture. We're our own agency under the Department of Ag. We started in 1935 as a result of the Dust Bowl. So you got some pictures here from Oklahoma, the Dirty 30s. Everybody knows that story. The story behind the formation of our agency is kind of interesting. Hugh Hammond Bennett was working in the Department of Interior and was working in soil erosion, saw all the erosion in the Great Plains. The legend is he went to Congress, to DC, to testify to Congress that we needed this agency to stop the erosion in the Great Plains. Knew a weather front was moving through, claimed he was sick. They delayed his testimony for a day. And then during his testimony, it went black in Washington, D.C. And all the congressmen, we were one of the only agencies, Homeland Security, I think might be another one that was almost unanimously approved by Congress. So we started in 1935. We're having our 90th birthday this year. And so, we started off trying to stop this erosion that you see in this slide. And what caused this is kind of interesting, but it had to do with crop rotations. A lot of wheat was produced as a result of World War I in the late 19 teens, so 17, 18, 19. Wheat price support system program in 1919 was the first price support operation that USDA launched. But anyway, so crop rotation was part of it, breaking the sod up, changing our cultural practices, and then an extended period of drought really contributed to that. So in the 90 years since, more than 90th or 90th year, we've gotten involved in lots of different natural resources endeavors. And so these are actual pictures I took across my travels. So in the upper left, you got a cover crop going into a cornfield. And we pay some cost share assistance for this, right? So we did a dormancy seeding in January with that drill. You can see it coming on the right-hand side, upper right-hand picture. So we had that cover crop growing, and actually, I don't have a third picture, but we did not seed that cover crop mix, or did not terminate it until about June 2nd, put soybeans in that field, and we grazed cattle on that. We turned it to kind of mimicking what the prairie soils want to do with having a living root there all the time. So on the bottom, we tag monarch butterflies. I love that picture. That's a picture of me holding a monarch butterfly with a tag on it before it takes off on its final journey to Mexico during its migration. So giving it a little bit of food on its way out. So there's two programs that we administer primarily for our programs that could provide cost share assistance for composters of all sizes. And so the primary program is the Environmental Quality Incentive Program. We use lots of acronyms here, and I apologize for that, but EQIP is the acronym. The other program is the Conservation Stewardship Program. They're very similar. The CSP program is for a little bit more advanced growers that are a little more involved, do a little higher level of conservation on their land. So they're both great programs. Nebraska leads the country in contracts administered for both of these. So very popular programs here in the state of Nebraska. So what is a practice? Why are we doing it? So in Nebraska, NRCS, we're interested in resource concerns. That's our primary focus. So in the picture of the Dust Bowl that we had earlier, soil erosion, obviously a really big resource concern in that photo. For composters, the resource concern might not quite be as clear. It's not maybe soil erosion, but we have what we call a plant productivity and health resource concern. And then also could be water quality related. So where we have a compost pile, we're composting, and that, we might get rainfall and there's runoff and there's high levels of carbon or other materials in there. They might leach into a water course. That resource concern would be a water quality resource concern. So in all, we have about 7 resource concern categories that we use as conservation planners. And so this is a practice that we provide cost share assistance on. And I wanted to kind of dig deep into how this works and frame this program up so that you can see how this works. But basically and I'm going to do this in kind of reverse order. I want to talk about the practices, how we fund them, how the rates work. We're going to get really detailed on how this works. And then at the end of the presentation, I'm going to circle back and then tell you how you can participate with us, or any citizen across the entire state or across the country can participate. So, but this is a practice we have. We have a practice standard for this, and this is a compost facility. A 3-bin system is one of the practice components that we use for this. This is a picture. Again, this is a picture I took in I think western Nebraska. So we see these practices all over the state. So, and I want to preface one thing about all this. We got into the small scale agriculture business in the 2018 Farm Bill. I should have kind of brought you along with this, but we got into more water quality cover crop practices in the 1970s and 80s and 90s, and early 2000s. In 2018, we were able to put farm numbers on a farm or a garden as small as 1/10 of an acre. So that's a 40 by 40 foot area or a garden. And so you can participate with us and do these practices. And interestingly enough, 3 years ago, before we started this, we had 9 applications for our small scale urban ag program. Last year, we had about 80 applications statewide. This year, we had another 80. And we're funding about 50 to 60 contracts per year of all those applicants. Interestingly enough, Omaha last year didn't have any applications. This year they've got 29. So we did a lot of urban outreach, a lot of participation in Omaha. Lincoln hasn't had any. We can't really get a foothold in Lincoln, and we're hoping to change that in the next years to come. So of the applications we have and contracts we write, about 60% have compost facilities in them. So our participants in the small scale are really interested in compost. This is a picture from Grand Island. We have set up a urban ag subcommittee, and we add practices like this, the Johnson Sioux bioreactor. So where we can't put in a bin system because of space or odors or ordinance or some other reason, we're seeing a lot of this. So our subcommittee is trying to get a Johnson Sioux bioreactor practice where we could pay some cost share assistance for a practice like this. And by the way, if somebody has questions, just come off mute or Karina, go ahead and interrupt me. I'd love to elaborate on any questions as they come up. So I'm going to take you through an example of our compost facility. So we have a practice list with over 40 practices. So we're only looking at one practice here and one component. And literally there's hundreds of components for all of our practices. Could be high tunnel greenhouses, irrigation systems, cover crops, and compost facilities. So this is the component for the farm and bins with the pad. And I wanted to show you the $57.98. This is a rate we pay for environmental quality incentive program for fiscal year 2025. So this year. And then the next line down says beginning farmer. So the same component, if you're a beginning farmer, which for our purposes is 10 years of Schedule F or less. Okay, so that constitutes beginning a farmer. You can see that we pay $69.57 per square foot. So we incentivize the beginning farmer by giving them a little extra cost share. So we see this very commonly, a 16 by 18 or so compost bin, and we pay on this per square foot unit. So that's 108 square feet. For the non-beginning farmer, $57.98. That's $6,261. For beginning farmer, $7,513. So you can see that for that bin site, we're paying for the wood, the pad, the construction. There's some labor and other factors built into that. It could be freight, shipping, and sales tax, things like that. So that's how we arrive at that number. And this could go into a contract, and that's the money actually paid back to the small farmer. And then another practice is raised beds. So we're thinking of composters and the real interest from our small scale growers. Raised bed is like our third most popular practice. So about half of our contracts we write have raised beds, and our customers with raised beds are really interested in purchasing compost. So this is just a picture of some raised beds and then some plants growing in native soil. Another practice we have is the high tunnel. Again, the high tunnel is a place where we see lots of compost going. So lots of compost, biochar when we can get it. And it's as a soil amendment. I'm going to take you through that soil amendment practice here in just a little bit. But this is a picture taken in Rogers, Nebraska. It's a small village between Schuyler and Fremont, Nebraska on Highway 30, 104 people in the town. Beavers Produce, if you go to beaversproduce.com, you'll see Andrew Beavers started farming in 2020, basically had a garden, has a large garden. He was selling extra produce during COVID. And now one thing has led to another. He is farming on 8 vacant lots in the small town of Rogers and makes a living out of this now. So he gets compost, I think, from one of your Nebraska composters. And so he gets it on quite a large scale, but he also is interested in producing his own compost on site. And so we have these practice standards. And so soil carbon amendment is another practice that's really tied closely to composting. And I wanted to actually show you the practice itself. We have a technical guide that's online. I could show you the link to that if you'd like to find out about that. I'll get you that link, so let us know. But what I wanted to point out in this practice standard is the resource concern addressed for starters. So why would we do soil carbon amendment? We're adding carbon to a soil. And here's some of the reasons why. We want to improve plant productivity and health, help soil management, all those things that you're all probably familiar with. But these are the reasons why, the why of our placing with your operation. So then it also talks about, you can see the scenario down below, compost and biochar in small areas. So it's saying blend 50% compost and biochar by volume, and why to do that: sequester carbon, reduce nitrogen, etc. Lots of good benefits from that. So this is the soil I picked up, actual photo from Columbus, Nebraska, from a construction site. You can't see a lot because you're not in person, but I grow cover crops on these things a lot. So on the left side, you've got a screw in there, some wood, a straw, a bunch of garbage. This is a Nora Crofton silty clay loam that I took all the material off the top. And the picture of the right is that same exact soil that's on the left, but I took a mixture of that 50% biochar, 50% compost that I composted myself in my own composting pit. And that is, I think, 11 days worth of growth. And so we're starting to sequester carbon in that cover crop, in addition to all the good benefits of the compost. And you can see the difference. The seeding rate is the same on the left as it is on the right. So we're about 100 seeds per square foot on the left, 100 on the right. You can see the difference. So soils are resilient. Compost is a huge part of that. Doesn't take them long to turn themselves around. And regenerative ag is what you hear a lot. It's kind of a catchphrase going on in agriculture right now. And, USDA, we've been doing regenerative ag since our inception in 1935. So this is part of regenerative ag. The soil carbon amendment practice 336 and the composting part of this is a really important thing. What's the plant objective for soil carbon? So soil carbon amendment. So these are some of the things we're trying to impact, right? We're trying to neutralize the soil pH. We're going to impact the soil texture with our compost we're adding. Soil organic matter and soil organic carbon, we're adding that through compost to the soil. Extractable phosphorus, potassium, calcium, all these trace minerals start changing the composition of the soil. So one thing we see, for example, that we're getting away from mineralized soil tests on soils and traditional ag, and we're looking at it, for example, by using biologics in soil, and composting as part of that. We might get, we don't apply phosphorus, and we change the amount of magnesium that's happening, because the phosphorus addition of commercialized mineralized phosphorus changes the soil chemistry and makes magnesium less available. So by adding compost, we're just doing all of these things that the soil benefit from in a really more natural way, and we get really great benefits from it. Last piece of that is cation exchange capacity, another big part of soil constituency that we help with that soil carbon amendment. And this picture is from West Omaha. So this is a picture I took. This is very common with our customers, and you see this pile of compost there. So they get wood chips or feedstock from the city of Omaha, right? And they just plow it out on the land, and this is the runoff that we see. There's a creek down behind that shed, and these are the things that we want to avoid: is sticking a lot of minerals into that creek, a lot of extra phosphorus and things like that. So the bins, diversions, and containing that runoff water that might come from it is all part of what we do at NRCS. This is just a great example of how we can work with city dwellers, especially, to help with their composting system. And I should point out, we also, for commercial grade and commercial size composters, I first started my career up in Stanton County in 1995, and one of my first customers was a commercial composter out there who was working on 80-acre farm. So He had a plan that he had to execute through the state of Nebraska, and that involved the runoff. So we built things like diversions, catch basins, and things like that to help facilitate his compost practice on the commercial scale. So the point there is I'm talking a lot about small scale things and showing those because that's what I do for my living. But certainly NRCS has the ability to work with farmers of all types for all types of resource concerns related to carbon and composting. Soil carbon amendment notes. So the soil test with a soil health test, soil test first is what we want to accomplish. I'll show you that in a second. We want to add compost and biochar or any combination of that for the soil carbon amendment practice. Continue amending the soils for 3 years. Test again with the soil health test to assess the results. This is my wife's house plant in this picture. It was almost dead, not a very good picture. I amended this house plant soil with 50% addition of compost from my home garden, 50% biochar. I added a cover crop mix, and you see the cover crop growing there. This plant literally had 3 leaves on it, and within about 9 months, the plant grew about a foot tall. And we didn't add any other fertilizers. We just let Mother Nature do her thing by amending the soil. So that is an actual picture from my house. And so this is the soil carbon amendment practice example. Similar to the one we had with the compost bin. So I took the beginning farmer part off. This is all beginning farmer rates here. But I want to show you that we paid $56.70 per 1,000 square feet to amend the soil. What does that mean? How does that look like for a contract? Well, in that picture of the high tunnel I showed you earlier, that was a 3,000 square foot high tunnel. Units of, so if I divide 3,000 by 1,000, I get 3 units of the practice component. And I take that times $56.70. The participant gets $170 per year for 3 years to amend that soil in that compost in that high tunnel per year. We start off with this soil health test. Very expensive test if you're familiar with those. A nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium soil test is about $23. Well, this one, a soil health test detects the carbon that off gases from the soils. It's a lot more detailed. It's looking at the biologic part of the soil. And so we have that in the contract at $709 twice, once at the beginning of this process, once at the end, and that contract total $1,900. So that's the pathway for that payment. So this is that high tunnel up in Rogers. So you can see, I thought this was a beautiful colored picture. He's getting about 4 crops of cold crops off that one high tunnel. He now has 7 or 8 high tunnels on those vacant lots up in Rogers. This is just one of them. It's the cold high tunnel. So he's rotating 2 crops through this high tunnel. He harvests the lettuce, I believe, 4 times, and he's building soil resiliency with his compost. And I think this is just a great lesson to us, like the beauty of things too, and the things we eat in these natural soils that we're in, and well cared for, and good healthy food. I've got a Mythbusters fact sheet of like who can participate with us. So I wanted to just point out a couple of things. I'm circling back now to who's eligible. How would I get signed up? So we have a Mythbusters fact sheet, and it debunks like 15 myths. So the first myth in this example is the farm must produce at least $1,000 of ag products to be eligible for EQIP. And then on the right side, it just debunks that myth. So there's no minimum ag income requirement to participate with us. So the point is, and it talks about 15 of these. So like we're trying to just get the new customer to us to understand if they're eligible, because there's some stigma, right, about like, can I participate? Am I really a farmer? I feel like I'm a gardener. Is this worth it? So this document helps us strike up that conversation. If you're interested in this, I can get this document to you, because it's really a pretty good document for what's eligible for our programs. So what would you do to sign up? Sounds complicated, right? Well, it's really not. So the first thing we do is get connected to the Farm Service Agency. Farm Service Agency is our sister agency with the Natural Resources Conservation Service. So we're co-located in offices all across Nebraska. All told, we have 77 offices currently across the state. So almost every county has an office. Sometimes we share, counties share an office. And if you go to USDA Service Center Locator, if you just put that in a web browser, you can go to Nebraska and find out the service center that's closest to you. So all you would do to get this farm number, if you farm in the city, doesn't matter. You just need proof of ownership of the land. So that could be something as easy as deeds online. There's online platforms that you can access a copy of your deed, and the FSA or the Farm Service Agency can work with you to get that copy of that ownership. And then if not, the other part of this is the tenant. So if I own a piece of land in town, I can sign this farm up, but I could lease it out to Karina. She could be the tenant. So in that case, there'd be two of us involved in FSA. I would bring in my ownership proof, and then Karina would bring in the lease from me, and then she could farm it for that crop here, and she would be the tenant. This is what Beaver's produce looks like in Rogers for the first year. I mean, now it's this little square in the middle with the yellow around it was basically his home garden. Now he's farming the majority of that block. So that's actually his farm. If you look around the outside of Rogers, that's not a very big town, but all those fields around Rogers are part of the farm program. They're all being farmed by traditional farmers. And so Andrew Beavers and you as a U.S. citizen are entitled to the same benefits that those farmers around the city of Rogers or the town of Rogers are eligible for. And our compost practices, again, wildly popular. They're eligible for funding just like everybody else. Once you get this, and that's what a farm number looks like. So that could be farm. They'll assign a number to that. The farm number just tells USDA that that piece of land is eligible to get benefits from the United States government. That's what that means. So once we get the farm number, we connect to NRCS, the Natural Resources Conservation Service. Again, we're in the same building as FSA, so it's one-stop shopping. You walk over to NRCS, strike up a conversation, tell them about your operation, and then we continue from there. We build relationships with you just like our traditional customers and take you through the process of planning. And you can see that we plan. If you're interested in financial assistance, we take an application from you. We determine if you're eligible. The FSA has rules and Congress wrote rules into our farm bill where you have to be. You can't be a U.S. foreign national and be getting benefits. You can't be like somebody like Warren Buffett, who if you earn over millions of dollars per year, you're not eligible for our program. So we vet that with you, make sure you're eligible, and then we rank the application, we give you a contract, and then we implement that contract. And those two examples of the contracting components that we talked about earlier are how we would implement that contract. So this is a nice little thing we can do. So for our small farmers especially, we can advance a payment. So in the case of that compost, where we're going to pay, let's say $7,000 for a composting bin, and we've got treated lumber in there, we've got maybe a concrete pad on the bottom that we're going to require, and that costs money. But the landowner is going to do the work themselves. We can, when you sign the contract, we can advance you half of the money for that compost bin. So we could give you $3,500 in that example, and then you get 90 days to finish the compost bin construction. And then when you do, we pay you the rest of that other $3,500 or the other half. And that's really important for our small and beginning farmers because sometimes they just don't have the funds to get something started. Even in the case of composting, I mean, it can be expensive. I mean, some of us might not think that in the case of like a compost bin, if it's $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000, that's not a lot, but it is a lot. And so we're able to advance the payment. This is very popular with our beginning farmers in the small scale. About 60% take advantage of this advancing the payment for a practice thing. The last picture I had, this was taken, and this is from a composter. up in northeast Nebraska, but this is a hydroponics facility. So we're not even growing in the soil. We're growing in perlite on concrete. This particular operation does about $1 million worth or £1 million worth of beef eater tomatoes per year. It all goes to grocery stores across the Midwest. And this box is a bumblebee box that he gets from upper peninsula in Michigan. Every 6 weeks, the bees pollinate the tomato crop through the year. And I thought this was just a great picture because it's got the little bee door there and they're letting the bees out for the day. And I think that's incredible that we're doing that right in our own backyard. So that's it. That is the presentation.
That's awesome, Brock. Where was that? The last photo where you said Northeast Nebraska?
Yeah, so that's up in Dakota County. Cardinal Farms is the farm up in Dakota City. Actually, I grew up in Northeast Nebraska, drove by this farm for 45 years, didn't know it existed. And then, right here in front of us, he's doing this work. He's a composter, all those
That's
things.
cool. So during the winter, if you're getting local hydroponic tomatoes, they're probably coming from him.
Interesting you say it that way. So those vines he starts. So it's a 11-month operation. He starts the vines in a trailer, and then he moves them to the greenhouse. And they tear all the vines out from one year in November, around right before Thanksgiving. They disinfect the greenhouse and they plant the new plants in sometime in December before Christmas. So not down for very long. By end of April, they're getting their first tomatoes. And then he ended again in November. Well, during the August months, he had a down, sales were really down, right? Because everybody got tomatoes available. So now he's switching that down period to August, July, August, a little bit of September. And so he's not, yes, so you can get him during the winter, but even more so next year, you'll be able to get him during the winter because he's shifted his crop rotation cycle. So,
Okay, cool. Does anybody else have questions that is on this webinar? I know I have another question, but I don't want to steal all the time.
I think we're doing good on time. So,
Okay. Yeah, no, my question was this is for a large scale. So basically what you're saying is you could even get funding for that concrete pad and say like leachate pond for the operation.
yeah, so it's been so long since I worked with our commercial composter. I don't know what was all required in this plan. I think he had to have a plan on file with us in Nebraska. I'm not sure how those work. I mean, you all are maybe more familiar with those, but really, in that case, I remember we had some drainage leaving that 80-acre piece that he was composting on. So we built a diversion, which was like a 2-foot berm kind of that led us to a settling basin. Okay, and so the settling basin, none of the water, the tube that was in the settling basin wasn't slotted, so the water ran off. So he collected almost all of that.
Okay.
And then he reused it in the field. I think he actually filtered it and put it on his compost potentially during the summer. He added bars to it and kept recycling it, and that was part of his plan. So we paid for the diversion and designed it because there's some engineering behind that. We have engineers on staff, about 40 of them across the state. We designed that diversion. We have what we call a heavy use area protection area practice. So where there's some erosion, we could pay for a concrete pad potentially. And then the embankment and the pipe and everything for that catch basin, we paid for that. So there's lots of practices. I think the best way for a commercial composter to engage with NRCS is just to, again, find the service center locator, get your local conservationist involved, have a conversation. I think commercially, commercial composters might be looking at our program and be like, well, I'm in an old industrial area or I'm in town. Am I eligible? If it's not egg production, we have some rules we got to follow. But again, the conversation should be had with the NRCS person just to make sure that that person knows that they're either eligible or not eligible and what it takes to become eligible. So that's not a very clear answer. A lot of ifs and
Yeah. I
just,
think there
I think
might be a lot of opportunities for more composters than even I was thinking of, like even maybe for urban vermicomposters and things like that.
it's definitely worth a conversation because since the 2018 Farm Bill, we changed who's eligible for our programs, right? So I think we just need to find out. There's probably some cases where if you just had a vacant lot with nothing happening on it at all, it's going to be hard to get a farm number on that and get an application because there's no production. We're not in the business of providing practices to get somebody started doing something. That
Yeah.
might be SBA, small business administration or rural development. There are avenues for that. We do connect uh, city people a lot of times, urbanites, and larger scale commercial people probably that are composters. We could connect them to rural development if they're outside Lincoln or Omaha or different resources USDA might have. So I don't ever want to say no to somebody until we have a
Yeah.
discussion. I don't know what they're doing and we don't ever want to exclude somebody. So
My other question was, is there a cap on the amount that you'll fund?
there is, yep, we do have certain practices have caps on them. Like in the case of the small scale grower, we have a cap for high tunnel size is 2,160 square feet because
Okay.
we want to move that money around and fund 60 contracts, not seven. And we don't want a commercial person coming in and say, I want to put up 27 high tunnels and take up all the money. So we do have a few sideboards like that where we cap practices because it could just be a windfall for somebody. Um, but generally speaking, most practices are not capped. Select few are. But again, we work through that as planners and that kind of changes year to year too. It can. So it's a little bit of a moving target, but the answer is we do cap some. There are contract caps sometimes. Um, but again, you just need to contact your NRCS person to find those answers out.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? I know I learned some new things today, so that was cool. I was also going to just mention there's a lot of Earth Day events coming up. So I know the City of Lincoln's is on the 19th. Um, Central Community College in Grand Island is on the 22nd. Omaha is the 26th. I know NRC will have some presence at the Lincoln and Omaha ones. But yeah, your community might have some sort of celebration going on too. So that's always a fun thing in April to do is support your environmental groups. Um,
Like we went to Lincoln last year as an agency, and that was a very kind of a cold day, but it was a really great event. So
yeah, and the little baby goats that you could pet.
yeah, lots of good stuff there.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely gonna Google the beavers produce because that looks and maybe just hopefully get out there to see it. It sounds really cool. Kind of,
Yeah, does most of that food is interesting where the market takes you and things. He started for 2 years going to the CHI hospital in Schuyler. Just was working on the back trunk of his car selling extra lettuce is how this all started. And then year two we did farmers markets. Year three, it just started blowing up. He was got on Buy Fresh Buy Local. UNL runs that website,
yeah,
and he put a $50 refrigerator in the convenience store in North Bend, Nebraska, because they don't have a grocery store in North Bend. And he sold that thing out like 70 times in 2022, I think. And then he got grocery stores to buy from him and restaurants. And now it all goes to Omaha, some going to Kansas City, lots of restaurants and stuff. So it's an interesting study in like where your food comes from. Uh,
yes.
that so
And I really like how you tied together not only the agriculture, so I see a lot of opportunities for rural agriculture and composting, but also urban, and just finding those connections with the soil carbon amendment too, because you're kind of tying all the things together. So yeah, I definitely think there's people out there that could utilize this program that don't know about it yet.
Yeah, like I said, we like to I like to get people growing first, like just whatever I got to do to get it started, just that idea and that conversation. And then the next thing that happens is they're interested in soil health, the soil fertility, and the soil safety. So
Hmm.
soil contamination, things like that. We have programs that test all that stuff and give it a clean bill of health. And then the very next thing is compost and how are we going to recycle our nutrients and how does
Yeah.
that look to us? And how do we amend the soil? So those two practices are wildly popular. We currently have 297. Next year we'll break 300 high tunnels since 2002 that
Wow.
NRCS is funded on across the state. So that's just us. I mean, private individuals have been doing that also. So
Yeah.
it's a growing market. They're those people are willing to pay a premium for this material too.
Hmm.
If they don't compost it themselves because time is of the essence. So when you talk about the scalability of compost companies, yeah, I've seen the one in Stanton County with on 80 acres. There's all types of sizes in between that can be composting for revenue. So
And you said Lincoln hasn't applied for any of the EQIP or the soil carbon amendments.
we have some around Lincoln. We've got 3 or 4 applicants for our farm to get farm numbers.
Okay.
We just, for some reason, we haven't had a lot of interest in small growers or gardeners even applying for the farm number in Lincoln, where
Yes.
Omaha it's really taken off. I think some of that comes down to like organizations like City Sprouts in Omaha. They're a nonprofit that has a really big force there. And the city of Omaha has 800 tax abandoned lots that they're putting leases on. So they've
Wow.
got a vacant lot gardening program where they have leased out about 80 to 100 vacant lots. And we've
That's
got farm numbers on those too. And those people are coming in for our benefits, so and assistance.
okay. That makes sense then. So it
Yeah,
sounds like,
the climate link is just a little bit different, but I think certainly there are lots of people in Lincoln that just don't know about us and things like that. So
yeah, I'll definitely reach out to community crops and
yeah,
see if they've ever thought about this too, because they do all of those things as well. And it
we're
kind of
very
makes,
close. We're very close to Megan McGuffey,
yeah,
community
yeah,
crops. Yeah, she's on the forefront of a lot of things with this. Uh,
yeah,
super great to work with. Yep.
yeah. Cool. Well,
Yeah.
thank you everybody for being here, and thanks, Brock, for giving us that awesome talk. Um,
So thanks
yeah,
for having me.
reach out to either Brock or I if you need help with compost or any question, really. We're here.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Have a great day, everyone.
All right. Bye.
Bye.